So let's get into it. So when we get a guest like you, it's really hard to know where to start. But we've decided to narrow in on the ocean race to start with. So to set the scene, you've won silver at London Olympics. You've gone on this amazing sweep. You haven't lost a race in the 49er. You've won gold at the Rio Olympics with Pete. And then 10 months later, you've won the America's Cup in Bermuda. And then after that, you decide to enter the Volvo Ocean Race with Matt Free. Am I saying that right? Going for the Triple Crown, which had never been done before. And so this is the part we're looking through all the stuff that really fascinates. I think it sort of caught the imagination of Shay and I. So we've got a lot of sort of questions to dig around with. But an 11-leg race, and you're out there sometimes 3 weeks at a time, 4 hours on, 4 hours off the whole time, right? Is that how, like, that sounds like hard work. Is that how it was?
Yeah, it's pretty much it. So the race starts in Europe and has, 10 or 11 stops around the world. And, yeah, I think it's 45,000 miles in total, just because the race has got a few more stops in it. Like, you don't quite do it in one as quick as you could if you did it, like, direct. It would only be, like, 25,000 miles or something. So the biggest extra lengths, actually, when you we went from Melbourne up to China and then back down to New Zealand. So instead of going just across there, you're doing that big extra stint. But yeah, awesome race. It was something I'd wanted to do right since I started sailing. So I guess the ocean race had captured my imagination. Yeah, right when I started in dinghies, and then I was pretty fortunate that I'd done a sail up to Fiji with my dad and a few friends when we used to have a boat. So doing a blue water crossing when I was like 11 or 12 or something like that, had set it off. And then, yeah, I think it was right around that same time that there was a 2002, 2003, there was a Volvo race. And I'd read the book and stuff, and there was heaps of cool stories. And I was like, yeah, that's something I'd love to do, just the adventure aspect of it, like the going between countries and then the competition obviously tied in with that. So it'd been something I wanted to do for ages, and yeah, great to have the opportunity to do it with Matt Free.
Okay, we're going to get buried into the details here because I've got a lot of questions.
No.
So 4 hours on, like, you sleep for 4 hours and then you work for 4 hours, right? But on those first shifts, I can't imagine you're sleeping off the bat. It's like everyone on sort of buzzing around, looking for jobs to do. And then as the days and the weeks roll on, that 4 hours, are you kind of like looking at the clock thinking, shit, okay, my shift's up, I'm going to go down and catch a kip?
Yeah, so the crew basically, essentially that's what you do, 4 hours on, 4 hours off, and then had a navigator on board that he just floated around and kept up the weather skids and all that sort of stuff. So he had his own watch. But when you're in your off time, you're not getting 4 hours sleep because you got to eat, and by the time you get down and get out of your gear and stuff. So like in a good off watch, you might get 3 or 3.5 hours sleep straight. But most of the time you don't get that all off, because anytime the boat needs to do a maneuver or a sail change, you need crew on deck. So you can sail the boat on deck with 3 or 4 people, no worries. So the other half, but then as soon as you do a maneuver, you need everyone on deck. So you might have only just got out of your gear, got in your bunk, been there 20 minutes, and you'll get a tap and saying, come on, we've got to do a sail change, or we've got to jibe or tack. So you're definitely not getting your 4 hours off.
Is it like a siren or a yell? Or were they just saying, get up here, Billy?
Oh, yeah, it depends. Sometimes it comes down with a bit of a loud voice, or if it's at the end of your, watch and someone's come down, they're like, all right, they'll just give you a tap and sort of say, all right, time to go to work or whatever. But it depends. Like sometimes, depending on what sleep cycle you're in, sometimes you wake straight up, and other times you're pretty out of it, But it really quite varied.
I've got so many questions. My brain's going overtime. You mentioned getting out of your gear. Is it like a fireman? Like, how long does it take you to get in and out of like the cold weather stuff, particularly?
Yeah, there's a big difference from when you're in the Southern Ocean to when you're going across the doldrums or the equator, when you're just going on deck in pretty much just shorts and a t-shirt. You're pretty much straight up. But yeah, in the Southern Ocean, sometimes it can take probably 15 minutes to get ready, because you're really trying to get into your bunk and just like pretty light thermals. You've got a thick sleeping bag, so you don't want to, the number one rule is that you don't want to get your bunk or your sleeping bag wet. So right. You get out of all your wet gear and just go down to your sort of first base layers, because you wouldn't be very popular with your mate that you do your it's basically hot bunking. So you haven't got a bunk each. You are always opposite someone. So when you're at least
Wouldn't wanna be
at
bunking
least the
with-
sleeping bag's warm when you get
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to be bunking with Amber Heard or anything like that.
You seem to bring her up every episode.
It's
eh?
really topical
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
I'm really following. I don't know what I'm
Some
going to do.
people are
in
going to be
that-
listening to us in a year's time. Say, why is he always talking about Amber?
Ah, yeah, true. I forgot about the timestamping. Sorry.
Yeah.
digressed.
Anyway, okay. So, like, how hard when you're on for 4 hours? How hard are you working? Are you at sort of 60%, 70%, or is it really, really tough?
It really depends on the conditions, but yeah, pretty much you're on the whole time. So the time actually goes pretty fast. So yeah, I guess life becomes quite simple when you're doing the ocean race because you're just basically trying to make the boat go fast, eating and sleeping, and that's kind of it. And you're just like in this cycle for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, and then obviously you get the stops at each city you go to, but then you're back into it again. So yeah, when you're actually on deck, the time goes relatively fast. You change up the jobs within that. So say like when you first get on deck, you might be just grinding for the people trimming the sails, or then you might be trimming the sails, or you could be then driving. So that's kind of how my watch was. I'd get on and I'd sort of just be on the grinding handles for the first hour, and then I'd normally trim the sails for a couple of hours or an hour and a half, and then drive for an hour and a half at the end. So yeah, you're kind of changing it up.
What does trim the sails actually mean? Because I hear a lot of sailing terminology, and it's
those
very
words.
familiar. I don't actually know what any of that means. Grinding, I know. I just remember Craig Monk was a grinder way back in the day.
Yeah, he
Trim-
came to Kitty Kitty High when I was like 14 or something. Actually.
There it is.
Um,
Trimming the sail, is that like tightening them?
Yeah, or when you're pulling it on, that's tightening the sail, and then I guess you can ease the sail as well. So if you're the trimmer on predominantly the main sail, when you're going like a lot of downwind stuff in the ocean race, you're changing that angle of attack, or like the sail in and out on the main sail.
Right.
So there's a trimmer that will be pulling it on, and when someone needs to grind to pull it on to create that power, and then I guess it's a free ease around the winch to ease it. So yeah.
There's no room for, this is a nautical term, there's no room for slacking though, is there? Like if you're crew, you can't like duck off and like have
Cut
an
some
off day,
corners.
right? You're not ringing in sick, are you?
Nah, but you like, because sleep deprivation is such a big thing on those boats. You really want the people on deck to be busy, like as busy as you can, and
Yeah,
then
right.
and then if you're not working hard, then you should be sleeping, because at some stage it's going to get tough. Like even if you've got an easy day, or easy couple of days, you know that at some stage there'll be a big weather system you got to get through, or you'll need to do a lot of maneuvers. So you really have to try and just like, be super efficient with your time the whole time.
I imagine, is it kind of like a mental roller coaster? Like, are there times when you're in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of nowhere, you're loving life, thinking this is the best job in the world, and then you're going through one of these storms or something, and you're freezing cold, and you can't sleep, and you're thinking this is fucking shit.
Yeah, you get the highs and the absolute lows, but that's what makes, I guess, the low points make the high points better. And the cool thing is, most of the time when you're going in those big like weather systems, you're going downwind, or a lot of when you're in the Southern Ocean you are. So like the sailing's absolutely epic. It's the coolest sailing you can do. You're on this boat, and there's normally when you're racing around here in the Hodaki Gulf or something, you go upwind for a bit, and then you go downwind, and you have to turn around at the marker buoy. Whereas this, you're going like downwind for a week, so you're on this like sleigh ride of a boat with like, yeah, basically with your mates, just sending it, but it's freezing cold.
When you do say with your mates, like that crew chemistry, how important is that? Like, is that done by design, or is it just like, let's get some bunch of dudes together and whatever happens, happens?
Yeah, it's super important to get that crew dynamic right, especially in that race where you're spending so much time together and you're seeing people in the toughest environments, both mentally and physically, and especially when it's you're sleep deprived and it's cold. You get all these elements which just bring out put people into situations which you've never seen them before, and we certainly saw that in the race. And for me personally, I went into places I'd never been before. So yeah, I guess it was awesome to get approached by Xabi, who we'd race against in the 49, actually a Spanish guy, really successful Spanish sailor, and he was heading up Mafre, and he pulled together a predominantly Spanish team, but with a few of us internationals. And it was just neat, like to be, when you've, I guess, been in like a Kiwi culture or a Western culture, I guess the whole time, to then be in this this Spanish team. It was was absolutely awesome. Really, really good group of people.
What does that mean if you're able to expand on it, going to places you hadn't been before? Are you talking about mental hardship? Or what is that?
Yeah, I guess mental hardship and physically, like you're running on really not much sleep. Physically, it's pretty challenging at times. Back to the hands, like your hands get wasted just from being wet for so long. So, they'll get, if you go on I guess it's best to liken it to if you're in a spa pool or something, and
It's this guy.
Yeah.
I can't stand spa pools.
and
In a bath.
your hands start going all, super soft, and so it's, I guess, the same as that. When your hands are like wet for that long, they go soft, and then you're trying to use them to like trim the sails again.
Yeah, nice.
So, and when they're soft, it's actually not too bad. But you go down to go to sleep, and you obviously dry out, and then when you come back on deck, your hands are like everything's dried out. You might have like cracks in your hands and stuff, and then to get them working again is like some of the most painful things you can.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's not just me. A lot of people have issues with their hands on the boat.
Doing my research on this one, is the OBR still a thing? Onboard reporter.
Yep.
Good
So you've
knowledge,
got,
man.
so
Real
you've
good
got,
knowledge.
Yeah,
thank
it's
you
good.
very much.
Yeah,
you
So you've got a
jerk.
guy on board. Everyone's working hard. Everyone's getting out there on the tools, but one guy who's just there, whose job is just to document everything.
Yeah.
He's taking photos and writing notes. Does he get a bit of shit from the crew?
Yeah, he does. Our guy, Ugo, I actually see him now. He does a videographer for the Spanish Sail GP team, so I see him around lots, which is cool. But I guess this Volvo or the Ocean Race in 2017, 2018 was the first time that they'd had OBRs, which were like in a central pool of people. So that before that they'd had the same sort of onboard reporter, but that person had been part of the team and been training with the team
Oh, right.
for like the 2 or 3 years leading up. So they really felt super part of the team. Whereas this one, Hugo was part of our team, but he was also in the central pool, and he kind of listened not to us. And there's some strict rules about what he could and couldn't do. So there was, I guess it had changed a lot where that person, like, yes, they were taking photos and doing all the video stuff, but then they would help out, like,
They also pitching in.
they'd pitch in, they'd cook people food, they'd do the bilges, they'd do, when you do a maneuver, you got to move all of the gear both up on decks, all the sails, and then all the food bags and all the gears downstairs need to change from one side of the boat to the other. And that person would normally chip in, but he would grab his bag and his like drone box, which is allowed to, and he would move that, and we're like struggling for all this other stuff, and then he would just be like, "No, I can't touch him." We're like, "Mate, we're in like the middle of the Southern Ocean." As if anyone's gonna just give me a hand, brother. I'm like battling here.
That guy's chat must be so important. I'd love to help guys.
Yeah,
The rules are the
Yeah.
rules, and I just
And then they would go do like more of a normal shift because they can't film at nighttime a lot. So then they'd go and just be in his bunk for like 6 or 8 hours straight, and you like just miss. If we're going on straight line, obviously we have to move him before. But he got better at the end of the race, and I think the organisers actually like softened up on it a bit because it didn't work as well as what previous. But yeah.
imagine the resentment building up
Yeah.
towards that guy. Eh?
Yeah.
Like on day 22, and you just see him snoozing in his bunk for the 7th hour in a row.
Playing a Sudoku. Just,
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah.
This guy. You must have seen some shit out there, like biggest wave, like huge waves. What have you seen? Whales? Like what did you see?
Yeah, I guess you get to see the ocean in the most raw, powerful form of itself, I guess, and that's both in like a really, I think naturally people go straight to like the Southern Ocean, all the really rough stuff, and it is super tough down there. It's just relentless. It's cold, wet, it's grey for days and days, and then you get these squalls coming through where you see the big black cloud forming, and then like see it starts raining. Sometimes it's hail. Then like even towards Cape Horn, it was snowing a couple of times out of those squalls. So you're seeing the ocean in like a super raw form down there, and then there's also parts of the race where you're seeing it in like the most beautiful situations, I guess, like going across the the equator or up through the doldrums, which is like the convergence between north and south, and like I guess the power of nature at that stage. You see these like clouds forming. It's a beautiful day, like no wind at all, and you see this like whole cloud forming out of nothing, and it might like form for like 2 or 3 hours, and we've moved like not very far. You're going like 1 or 2 knots, just drifting along, not moving, and then all of a sudden this cloud sort of gets closer to you. You get the wind from it, which is awesome. You start moving again, then it pours with rain, and then like all of a sudden it's like that, gone again, and you're just back to nothing. So you get to see the ocean and like, the most unique and like, I guess, just what other people, haven't seen before, which is pretty awesome.
Do you see like commercial ships kind of cruising around, or is the course designed in such a way that you never cross over with them?
No, you do really go through a lot of shipping lanes, but the ocean's fairly big, so you're not seeing them all the time. But
we said there'd be some bad questions, and I want to come in on the back of that and ask another potentially really bad question.
Well, let's finish. So you do see commercial ships.
Yeah, especially, and like when you're coming out of Europe, like we sailed out of the Med, and you're going out of the Gibraltar Straits, so that's like one of the busiest shipping channels in the world. So there's places like that, and then going through the Southern Ocean, I don't think we saw a boat for 2 weeks. So.
Go, stupid question number 5.
I feel embarrassed to ask, but
no.
Pirates? Are they a concern? Are they on the radar?
Yeah, not in the route that we took, but like in the editions before, when they sailed from like Cape Town, in the bottom of Africa up towards Abu Dhabi, and they sort of passed. I guess that's where they had a lot of issues over the years around the Somalian.
Is that right? No, it's not right.
No, close. Yeah, but they did go through the Malacca Straits at that stage, but yeah.